So, if you've been tapped into what's been going on in the bus world recently, you may have noticed these new buses, the BYD BD11s. And I'll be honest, from photos, I wasn't too sure about this bus, and it seemed like a lot of other people online weren't sure about it either, with the general consensus being quite negative towards these buses. But the bus is now here, and in passenger service. So, let's see if it's as bad as people have made it out to be. So, I'm back from my first ride on the BYD BD11s, and I have some thoughts. So let's start with the negatives. The exterior. Now, the exterior is interesting, to say the least. And for me, it's one of the biggest downfalls of this bus. Like, if you watched my previous video on the best buses of the 2020 so far, you know that I put a lot of weight on the exterior of a bus and allow that to mold and form my perception of the bus. And for me, the bus's exterior just doesn't do it. Firstly, it's the grills on the back of the bus. All buses need some sort of grills to help with the ventilation of the bus, whether it's a motor or a battery, but it just looks very odd and not aesthetically pleasing at all. Additionally, the display at the front doesn't seem to be that bright, and I thought it just might be specifically for the bus I was riding on, but when I was spotting various buses going up and down the road, all the BD11s seemed to have a really dim display, which made it hard to know which bus was actually coming to the bus stop. Obviously, bus enthusiasts, we know if we see a specific bus, it's going to be going on a specific route usually. But for the general passenger that doesn't know these specifics, it's not easy to tell what bus is coming and what route it is. So hopefully it's something that can be fixed, but if not, that's a big negative for this bus. Next is the display at the back. For some reason, there's this big rectangular space at the back of the bus which would be adequate for a big display which would include a destination of the bus as well as its route number. But for some reason, it doesn't utilize all the space, but uses a smaller display inside of the rectangle that just displays the number of the bus. And again, I just think it makes the bus look really odd and not really well thought out, because if that space is for a display, why not just have the full display there? Because buses in London do include the full display where it says the destination as well as the bus route. So it's not uncommon. And if the space is there for it, why not just have it? And if it isn't a space for a display, why not just have the smaller square that just displays the bus route instead? Because having the both just makes it look really odd and not well thought out. Now to the inside of the bus. The front seat, the one closest to the driver, for some reason is really uncomfortable to sit on. It's like they didn't put any padding at the bottom and it's just like rock hard. I was sitting on that seat for quite some time because I was taking some videos and whatnot and trying to enjoy the journey. And I wanted to get different aspects of the journey from different points on the bus. And that seat was just not great. And I was sitting there for about 30 minutes, kind of in agony, but I was pushing through to allow myself to get a full, well-rounded understanding and perception of the bus so I could give a good review of it. But my God, I don't know why it's so uncomfortable. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's to deter people from sitting really close to the driver. Who knows? Another point is the bus stopping light, the light that turns red when the bell is pressed on the bus. So, for us passengers, it seems to be quite visible and helpful for us to know that the bus is stopping, having that visual aid in addition to the iBus screens as well as the auditory aid. However, when I asked the bus driver how he felt driving the new buses, he mentioned that he couldn't see that light from his driving position in the cabin, meaning he only had one visual point of reference to know whether to stop the bus or not, which is via the dashboard, compared to other buses where the bus stopping light can be seen from the driver's cabin. But yeah, that's pretty much where the negatives end. Now it's time to hear the positives of this bus. Firstly, the seats. Oh, the seats. At this current point, Go Ahead are the only operator to have these buses, so my view on the seats are solely based on the Go Ahead variants of these buses. Minus the front seat, the one closest to the driver, they are all really comfortable. The ergonomics of them are amazing. They have a similar design to Go Ahead's previous offerings, with the Go Ahead maquette in the middle and the faux leather kind of stitched around it. It just looks amazing and is very comfortable to sit on, especially the high backrest as well, where you can just rest your head and it feels very nice and comfortable. There's adequate leg room. They include armrests as well. I've been seeing that a lot on the newer buses, specifically the priority seats at the front of the bus. But all in all, great seats. The acoustics, the sounds of the buses. I love the sound of the bus. I like the low humming noise it makes as it's driving along. And I like the noise it makes when it's accelerating. It has this like high pitch, like, it's great. Very soothing, very relaxing. Obviously very different to a diesel bus and a hybrid bus, but still very soothing and relaxing. The bell, I would have to say the bell is kind of a funny sound. It's unique, at least. I don't dislike it, I'll be honest. I would have to put it on the side of positives than negatives, definitely. I think it's unique and it does the job. You know, it alerts you that the bell has been pressed. And the door closing noise. Some buses have got it wrong in the past where they have too long of a beep whilst the door is closing, and it's quite like a high-pitched whiny noise. But this bus does it well. Like, it's short, it's concise, it gets the job done, and it makes it clear to the passengers that the bus doors are closing. And it's not jarring, you know. It's not a jarring noise, it just does it. The ambience of the bus. Now, what sets this bus apart is the lighting, the interior lighting of this bus. Very similar to the MCV BZLs that have the interior lighting, the BYD BD11s also have this interior strip lighting effect, and it is really cool to have. I'm a big fan of having alternative lighting on buses instead of that constant, bright, hospital-like lighting on a bus. And what makes it so cool is that it doesn't just have one colour, it has several colours that it can flick between, which makes it so much better. And I think other bus manufacturers should include this feature on their buses because that just levels it up even more. Another point is that it's a very spacious bus. Compared to other electric buses that we've been seeing in recent times, this bus feels a lot more spacious. And I think that's thanks to BYD's advancements in their battery technology, where their batteries are much smaller and can last much longer, which means it takes up less space on the bus and allows for more passenger usable space instead. Now the ride. The ride is very, very smooth. I actually went on a diesel Enviro400 in the middle of my filming to kind of get a comparison between the electric and the diesel motors. And as much as I love the diesel motors and the noise it makes on the bus, I do have to say the ride on the electrics is much smoother than on the diesel. It's kind of hard because do you prefer the sounds or do you prefer the ride? It's hard to weigh up, but the ride on these new buses is definitely very smooth. Also, on the route I went on, which is the 320, there's a stretch after Bromley Common and before Biggin Hill Valley where the miles per hour on the road is 40 instead of 30, and that bus hits that with ease. Oh. Now for some special features on the bus. Some common on newer electric buses you see nowadays, and some unique to this bus specifically, which again level it up even more and make it such a unique riding experience. Firstly, the 3 bells near the wheelchair section of the bus. Personally, I've never seen 3 separate types of bells on one pole, and it was kind of funny to see at first. Firstly, there's the pushchair bell, which is obviously what you push when you have a pushchair. I assume that instructs the driver that 1, there's going to be available space, or 2, for the driver to lower the bus a bit so it's easier for the person taking off the pushchair to get off the bus. Next is the wheelchair bell, which obviously alerts to the driver that they need to open the ramp at the next bus stop as the person in the wheelchair wants to get off at the next stop. And then there's just a regular bell that's seen all over the bus. I think the 3 types of bells is very interesting and very unique to the bus, and again levels it up as a very unique and cool bus and a cool addition to the London network of buses specifically. Another special feature is the 3 screens. That's been seen quite a lot on the new buses now. So they have one bigger rectangular kind of squarish screen near to the front on the left hand side of the bus, and then they'll have one facing the opposite direction, which is like the traditional longer rectangular shaped ones, and then they'll have the one upstairs, which has obviously always been there. I think the addition of the 3rd screen was needed, and the position of the 3rd screen makes a lot of sense, as it now means most people on the bus will have some sort of visual aid to know specifically what bus route they're on, where it's going, and what bus stop they're at. Another special feature was the vents. I noticed they had vents on the ceiling of the bus, which was really weird. It's like, felt like I was in a coach. I don't know how useful they'll be in regular use though, because the time people spend on the bus is much less than they would do on a coach. So I don't think people make the effort to move it in a way that's beneficial for them. But, you know, we'll have to wait and see. Again, this is another special feature that we're seeing a lot on new buses, which is the Type A and Type C charging ports on the buses. Again, it's great to see, and it means more people can charge their phones. And lastly, a special feature that's not very common on the other BD11s, but was very prominent on my one, was a crack on the front window of the bus, which was kind of funny to see considering these buses have only been in passenger service for just over a week. But to conclude, it's kind of weird. It's kind of like I was reviewing two separate buses. If this was a review just of the interior of the bus, this honestly would be on the top of my list of bus interiors, like, ever. To the great acoustics on the bus, to the great ambience on the bus, like the lighting, the spaciousness on the bus, the ride on the bus, the comfortability of the seats, it just kept getting better and better. And honestly, this bus, if it was just the interior by itself, would be number one, honestly. But when you factor in the exterior, it just doesn't paint as pretty of a picture. So taking everything into consideration, what I would say is that this bus is a great example of don't judge a book by its cover. So, have you been on these buses yet? And if so, what do you think of them? Are they the future of electric buses? Or should they have left them back at the factory? Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. No need to see a rainbow when you're feeling down to your core. Just step into a BD11 and you'll be filled with joy evermore.